Bitcoin's having a potential local top, and the macroeconomic factors that the Bitcoin halving brings into this situation. Today, we're going to analyze the breaking Bitcoin system, and we're going to go over all the milestones that we've reached so far in the cryptocurrency field. Stay tuned for Breaking Bitcoin.
This is Enzo from OKEX, and you're watching Breaking Bitcoin.
Welcome back to Breaking Bitcoin. We are live every day at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is your daily source for everything cryptocurrency markets and finance. I am your more sunburned than usual host, Justin Wise, lead analyst at CrackingCrypotcurrency.com. Of course, we have to start off by saying, May the 4th be with you. It's a spectacular Monday. Good start to the market. So much volatility out there. There's so much to break down and discuss today. So thank you guys for spending your afternoon, morning, or evening, wherever you happen to be tuning into this show from across this great land that we call home. World that we call home. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good day. Before we begin, there has never been a better time. If you are a trader, if you're sitting on the sidelines, if you're an active trader, it doesn't really matter. There's never been a better time to join our community and start building your own trading system or improving on what you have. You can take advantage of our proprietary indicators and strategy systems like Minx, time transformation, take advantage of our community mentoring, our individual mentoring, premium trading signals, and our suite of educational materials and courses. For more information, there is a link in the description down below, or point your browser to premium.crackingcryptocurrency.com. It looks even better on mobile. Premium.crackingcryptocurrency.com. Like I said, we've got a fantastic show for you guys. I hope you guys all had a absolutely great weekend. I had a good weekend, obviously. Got a little sunburnt. Fishing will do that once in a while. All right, so let's break down what we've got going on. For that, let's head to the market and look at what's going on. Let me get everything pulled up here properly. All right, looking good, looking good, looking good. Let me guys know how you're doing in the chat. If you guys have any questions, just pop them in the live chat. The moderators will direct my attention to them as we progress. All right, so here we are in the live scene. Bitcoin's price is always moving, and it is no different today as we tune into the Bitstamp chart, forming a hanging man or a long-legged doji on the daily. Obviously, bears got really over their skis, really excited. I really feel bad for anybody that market sold down around these levels. That was not a good idea. And of course, the red line denoting the halving coming up. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on. The projected halving for Bitcoin is going to be May 12th at block 630,000. All right. And then this, of course, for those of you who don't know, this is when the Bitcoin mining reward is going to go from 12.5 to 6.25. All right. Now, fundamentally, the classic argument is that this is a supply versus demand issue, right? Supply versus demand is altering. Supply is going to be decreasing. And because we are in a global economic event where safe haven assets are being flooded into, demand will go up. When you have decreased the supply and an increased demand, numbers should go up, right? And fundamentally, we've also seen an increase. If you look at on-chain metrics, we've seen an increase in user activity, growth of unique addresses, and number of daily transactions, right? Interestingly enough, number of unique addresses, I think, stalled at 100 million. And we've since been on a rise in number of unique addresses, unique used addresses. That information is courtesy of Glassnode. So good metrics there, right? And we're not really stalling at resistance. Retail excitement for Bitcoin based on these metrics and what we can obviously see with what's going on in the market is beginning to manifest, right? And of course, this all kind of kicked off. The retail excitement began when Bitcoin broke through 7,750 to reach 9,500 at its local high. All right, Bitcoin dominance rose to 66%. And what's interesting as well is that the Bitcoin hash rate followed price, right? Now, of course, Bitcoin's hash rate logged its lowest rates during Black Thursday, right? And that's when it dropped 44% to about 105. I think it's Equihash, right? Tell me if I'm saying that wrong. Maybe I just like Equifax. I don't know. But now it's around 140 Equihash. Now, Bitcoin hash rate hits an all-time high early today. Right. And that's important because, this is all related to selling pressure, because if Bitcoin's price stayed in the $6,000 to $7,000 range, where we thought it was going to be range bound before we got that big green candle to the upside, which we were long on, right? Because the correct trend was to the upside. And when you're trading in the direction of the dominant trend, as I always say, good things happen to you. But if price had stayed consolidating at the $6,000 to $7,000 range, which we were there for quite a while, then over-leveraged and even under-leveraged, honestly, a lot of mining operations would have had to shut down, right? Because at those price levels, mining Bitcoin is not overly profitable unless you are extremely efficient, right? So they would have had to shut down heading into the halving. Right? That would have been minor capitulation, and that would have led to an increase in selling pressure for Bitcoin. And of course, I think that you have to look at that as the primary factor because price went up. We recovered from minor capitulation, right? Now, keep in mind the infamous hash ribbons buy signal was generated last week. We talked about it. This is from Capriel Charles. It's got a very good track record of being a good indicator. And it's a long-term fundamental indicator, right? It indicates when mining hash rate has recovered from people essentially turning off their machines. And a lot of individuals, of course, turned their machines off following Black Friday. We saw a massive decrease in hash rate activity. Again, Black Thursday, hash rate dropped 44%, right, to lows. And now we've recovered along with price. Price has rallied over 130% this year, if you denote the high, right? If you denote the high that price traded at, meaning once again, for anybody out there with anything negative to say about Bitcoin at the beginning of the year, right? Or if at any time during the dip, if you would have put your money into Bitcoin, all this money that you're worried about, your savings account going down or your 401k going down or your IRA going down, putting your money into Bitcoin acted as a safe haven asset, right? You have outperformed the market. You are up. You have made money by putting your money into Bitcoin. It has outperformed gold. It has outperformed silver. It has outperformed hedges. It has outperformed the S&P 500. It has completely outperformed every market out there again, intra-year. This is ridiculous when we get long-term bears like Nouriel Roubini that have no idea what they're talking about, or for the love of God, Jamie Dimon. Of course, he doesn't have a self-interest to promote the downside of Bitcoin's price, right? Do we? Now with price currently above 7,000, miner selling pressure is decaying, right? Now, currently, I don't see any fuel that would accelerate a significant downtrend. You know, if we were consolidating, at $6,000 to $7,000 and we were putting in kind of the topping activity, oh, come on, man. I hate when my talking notes won't just stop. There we go. Now, if we were consolidating around 6,000 to 7,000, and we were starting to see like these topping behaviors, these topping patterns, and these momentum indicators from my trading system and from our indicators, then I would be concerned that because we have minor capitulation on top of this could really accelerate the fuel of the downside. We don't have that. We're above price. I think overall we are macro bullish. I think we are going to continue to accelerate. I think that Bitcoin's price will be higher in 1 year than it is currently right now. I think we are going to continue to slowly and steadily climb. However, in the short term, as a trader, we'll get to this here in a little bit, I do think that we are going to see a pullback starting right about now. Now, keep in mind that when we get the halving coming up, we are going to see a temporary decline in hash rate due to what's commonly called catalyzing capitulation amongst miners, right? Catalyzing capitulation amongst miners. Because again, as I talked about last week, when we actually get to the thing, your best analysis says that, well, everybody is prepared for this, right? All the miners know who's going to be profitable and who's not. And they've all had a nice discussion about who's going to shut down their machines. And they've contacted the bank and they've sold off all their assets. And everybody knows how everything's going to go. And they're just going to progress nicely into the next economic corridor. When in reality, nothing ever works like that. Anybody that's ever run a business, anybody that's ever lived a real life knows that life does not happen like that. Generally, you plan as best as you can and then stuff happens until you're forced to deal with it. This is how the majority of human persons deal with life. They don't really plan ahead that well. And those who do are overly rewarded, right? But most people are not, right? Overly rewarded or overperforming. Most individuals are about average. And so I would not assume that Bitcoin miners fall into any special range of superhuman, right? These are not these are not Nietzschean, superhumans. They're just regular Joes, regular people who happen to have their job, their hustle of mining Bitcoin. And so we're going to see them shut down. So again, catalyzing capitulation amongst miners is inevitable. We are going to see a decline in hash rate, most likely a decline in price immediately following the post-halving, right? Because miners that have to shut down are most likely going to sell excess BTC, and Bitcoin's price is fairly attractive to sell at these levels. I mean, relative to 3,500, if you bought at the lows previously earlier this year, then it looks like a pretty good time to sell, right? I mean, just objectively, right? If you're up over 100%, come on. Now, I want to talk about the fundamental effects of mining and the halving. And the fundamental effects of the halving are really twofold in relationship to price, right? Now, selling pressure likely let's talk about the two different avenues. Selling pressure can increase, and this is due to the smaller operations dumping excess Bitcoin that they hold currently in reserve in order to fund their operations. Okay. At the same time, because we're above that $6,000 to $7,000 price range, larger operations, seeing their income being cut in half, might be incentivized to hold their Bitcoin until price rises, right? Why would you sell a Bitcoin at 6,000 if you have a pretty good prediction that price is going to rise to 9,200? And again, the idea that not all see, it's common. People will commonly say, like, when they're talking about miners, that they don't speculate, right? They just deal with the here and now. That's not true. I know miners. A lot of them speculate, right? So why would you sell at 6,000 to 7,000 if you've got a pretty good idea that price is going to rise exponentially? So smaller miners who are under the gun and forced to pay their bills might increase sell pressure in the short term. But overall, they're going to get weeded out. And the larger mining operations who are well capitalized and well funded and are more efficient at these price levels, particularly, again, we're above 6,000 to 7,000, so they're doing very well. They might be incentivized to hold their excess Bitcoin in reserve, which actually would decrease selling pressure, right? This decreases selling pressure in general, right? Because miners just have less physical Bitcoin to dump onto the markets, right? There is reduced sell pressure, and nothing really should happen to the level of demand. We can argue that demand will go up, but there's not really anything to argue that the overall, let's say, annualized demand for Bitcoin will go down. So overall, long-term, absolutely bullish on the halving event. Again, decreased physical amount of Bitcoin to sell into the markets, and large mining operations who are profitable are incentivized to hold their Bitcoin until prices even higher before they actually sell. And overall, again, decreased physical flow of Bitcoin onto the markets, right? So again, should that occur, and I think that we will actually see a decrease in overall selling pressure, creating an environment ripe for bullish sentiment to sweep price upwards. Particularly, again, now let's break this down. CNBC just gave the call for normies to enter into the Bitcoin marketplace with their infamous buy call. And of course, you have individuals jumping out of their windows to say, well, this is the top, guys. Boys, this is it. We're going down to 2K. I think they're wrong. I think that we are going to correct, but I don't think we actually are going to get that low for Bitcoin's price, right? So if you are overall like on the sidelines looking for the best position to take in Bitcoin, I would wait for a pullback to go long in a deep way. If you're a more active trader like myself, I think this is a good opportunity to take profit on your current at-risk long, which is exactly what I'm doing. I've set a trailing stop loss. I still have my leverage long open, right? I've taken 50% profit. I'm way up on that trade, in the double digits on that trade. And so I'm going to trail the stop loss while I scale into a short for the short term and then look to go long down at support. We'll go over that here in just a little bit when we get to breaking down the charts. And again, typically, if you counter trade CNBC, who kind of gave the buy call for the Bitcoin halving, you do very, very well. In this case, I think that trading along with CNBC, taking the buy call, is not a good idea. Being patient and taking the buy call here in a week or two, good idea, right? Now, again, remember, Bitcoin has rallied 130% this year from the lows, outperforming any other safe haven asset, outperforming all traditional markets and even precious metals. I have to say that again. The current economic environment is what Bitcoin was built for. We say that again. What's currently going on in the world and in the economy around the world is what Bitcoin was built for. Okay? Moving into the halving, I think it's very silly to be overall bearish. Okay. Now, crypto market cap reached 249 billion. Okay. Up 11% just in the last week. However, the market cap did lose $14 billion overnight. Bitcoin's price did drop from 9,200 to 8,600, actually a little bit lower than that, about 6.5% correction. We are now bouncing back up pretty quickly. One thing that's really interesting that we have to keep in mind, 520,000 Bitcoin traded on April 29th and 30th, moving into the end of the week, right? And that's significant because April's average daily traded volume was 65 to 70,000 Bitcoin per day, right? We only traded over 100,000 Bitcoin per day 4 times in April. Right? Now, on the positive side, Bitcoin's up about 20% just in the last week. This is Bitcoin's 7th week of consistent gains in a row. Now, another thing that I want to look at is the monthly close, because there's a lot of hurrah coming about the monthly close. April's monthly close was what technical analysts call a bullish engulfing candle. Now, many are celebrating this as a sign of a bullish reversal, but according to I think that at times like this, those of us who are a little bit more experienced in technical analysis should refer to the experts and to the sources. And in this case, when we're talking about candlestick or chart analysis, I prefer to go to the literal book by Thomas Bulkowski, right? Encyclopedia of Chart Patterns, who literally wrote the book on chart patterns regarding bullish engulfing candles. And I quote, to the best of my ability, bullish engulfing candles act as a temporary reversal of a downwards price trend. This is also a trading setup that he suggests individuals avoid trading because the primary trend is downwards. The bullish engulfing candlestick does reverse that trend, but only for a short time. The primary downwards trend takes over and price resumes falling. Okay. Now, I disagree overall that we are going to continue a bearish trend. We can clearly see a bearish monthly trend. But again, overall, I would call this a ranging, right? If you look at where price is closing, again, we're just closing a little above average fair price. And we'll look at the volume profile analysis chart. We've looked at this before. We look at this all the time, right? Here's the volume. Well, why is this so small? Okay, here we go. On the weekly, the volume profile analysis chart, right? We have overhead resistance above which Bitcoin's price is a little bit overbought. I think that trading back above 10,000 is what we need to see to accelerate a new cycle, which will take us to new all-time highs. But we have to do that. We have to close weeklies above 10,000. And we have the fair market range of Bitcoin, which is $6,000 to about $7,000, right? And that's overall a worst case scenario where I see us dipping post-halving for the run-up that will breach 10,000. I don't really think that we're going to be seeing 33 to 4,000 anytime soon, but we'll conquer that, right? As a trend following trader, like we'll know the trading systems that we utilize every single day will tell me if I'm wrong. But just again, looking at this with my experience and with my and what I know about the markets and my personal sentiment on this, this is overall bullish to me with a short-term correction coming in right about now. But I'm just telling you guys this information so that you can be aware of who knows and who doesn't know their technical analysis, right? So again, a bullish engulfing candle is not a trend reversing candle. Right? It is not a trend reversal candle. When a bullish engulfing candle happens in a bullish trend, that's a trend continuation signal. Okay. When a bullish engulfing candle happens in a bearish trend, it is typically an opportunity to reshort. Okay. Now, moving along. The other thing that's interesting too is if we look over at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, we'll go back to the daily here. Chicago Mercantile Exchange open interest past 300 million. For the third time in the last 12 months, right? Open interest on CME past 300 million. And the last two times that happened, it signaled a market top, right? Now, as this just happened, when Bitcoin hit its local high at 9,500, I would say that comprised with everything else, are signs that the correction is incoming for pre and post halving. I think that it's most likely incoming right now. Now, all that being said, let's look at a few other technicals while we're here. All right, so we can see that Bitcoin's price is not moving very much really over the last week. Yes, of course, when you comprise that big move into the upside, but let's just take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Okay, let's be very precise. The last 5 days, we do have volatility intraday, high movements to the upside, but sustained plodding along, making progressions in a bullish trend. Daily closes moving upwards. We're not really seeing that. Daily closes moving downwards. We're not really seeing that. We're trading in an overall median range. Generally, symmetrical consolidation at resistance is bullish. This is exactly what we saw prior to the big candle, which is this area right here. But I do want to point that out. I do want to be a little bit more specific with that area because we do have consolidation at resistance with a steady march and climb upwards. You can see where the bears did take control for a day on the 28th of April, but a very, very weak, a hanging man doji candle, which typically is a bearish reversal candle or can be. But again, very little pressure to the sell side here. And again, what did we see? We saw a rapid acceleration coming in on the 29th, pushing us up into our current range. And we've been long since down here. Having said that, all right, let's look at where we're at. We have a big sweep to the upside, putting in that. I mean, again, I talked about this yesterday, saying that this doesn't quite look like a blow off top. Upon further analysis, this certainly is beginning to look like a blow off top. This certainly is beginning to look like a blow off top. We have this nice doji, again, indicating that bulls and bears are at equal strengths. And what result do we see coming in on Monday? A very critical day. Of course, that was on Sunday, which is a very critical day for pre-early speculators or front runners of the market coming in as soon as the CME opens up, or individuals taking kind of knowledge from the CME trading as soon as it opens up, trading on the actual spot or leveraged exchanges that we have access to. Of course, you can trade on the CMEs if you like, but again, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for most individuals watching this show. You're probably going to be trading over on ByBit or Binance. And getting that follow through from today. Now, again, hitting the lows of this current range, we can see that price was bought up pretty impressively. All right, let's zoom out. Let's look at the 45-minute chart. Okay, here's the overall bottom. We hit that bottom. A very nice discretionary reversal buy, I think, would have been a good idea there. And the traders that were early on that and taking advantage of that, that's fine. Now, as for myself, I utilize that area to put on a trailing stop loss. Of course, all the premium trading signals already have gone out, for myself anyways, to the premium members of the trading group this morning, as well as my more detailed analysis that only our premium clients have access to. Now, as far as where we're at right now, okay. We can see it more clearly on the 4-hour. Again, overall consolidation around a range. So the non-symmetrical, so let me rephrase this, right? The lack of a steady trudge upwards, the existence of a trading range, the existence of, I would argue, more sell pressure to the downside now currently in combination with that high wick to the upside indicates what is most likely a local top to me. And I do expect Bitcoin to actually break down out of this range and push lower. Have I market sold at current prices? No, I'm actually still long. I'm still long spot. I'm still long at leverage. I'm going to allow price to drift upwards in this range, hopefully over the next day or two, and scale into a short. All right. So the better move is certainly to be patient here, in my opinion. Now, there's nothing wrong with trailing your long and setting your trading account up in such a way that if we are wrong, that it's not going to take a couple of days to actually distribute enough to actually break to the downside. That's fine. You can do this with a stop market order. That's not the best way to do it. The better way is to set an invalidation level. We'll go over that here in just a second, because of course, I also have the benefit of utilizing the Breaking Bitcoin system. Now, I need to, it is not. Okay. Now, I wonder why that is not working right now. Give me a second. There we go. It's working over here. Because that's the CC. Okay. Thank you so much. Sorry, guys. All right, cool. Sorry about that. Had to apply the updated version of this indicator to my chart, the new version of the CC Breaking Bitcoin. Sorry about that. Thank you so much to Alex, by the way, for helping me kind of troubleshoot this and continue to improve this. And again, yes, I know the premium members want this really bad on their charts. It is still experimental. There are a few things about it, because I've designed it with Alex's help, where there's a little bit of nuance. And once we kind of finish those things out, we'll be fine. Our main focus right now is on building up our automated signals and automated strategies, which we are also currently in the process of improving. There's about 5 more automated strategies that we want to port in for the premium trading group. Again, these indicators, these systems are designed to help us catch price action and help us catch price movement, where a human would not be as able to consistently and reliably trade those systems unless you had a daisy chain of human beings that are like, oh, I'll take the 8-hour session, I'll take this 8-hour session. And that's really no way to live, because we trade for freedom, right? We trade for freedom. So anyways, let's take a gander here. Now, this is all pending daily close, but we have more than just the daily close. So it's actually a little not correct that this is pending daily close. It's not. We're already set up for this trade, right? However, those who are following this more strictly would be waiting pending close. So let me break that down, because that sounds very loosey-goosey, and I'm not loosey-goosey. Anyways, so looking at the breaking Bitcoin system, as you can see denoted by the red X on top of today's current candle, my trend following system is indicating that my best course of action today is to exit my long position, to exit my long exposure, right? Now, that is a high risk, right? A higher risk. You know, again, if we're looking at signals that the breaking Bitcoin system generates, it does potentially generate 3 signals, right? The break of the initiator, the break of the continuation filter, and the break of the exit indicator, right? So that's 3 potential movements that you could take, right? Now, obviously, the trend and continuation are going to generate continuation long signals, trades in the direction of the overall trend, whereas the exit is by default going to, it generates an exit signal, which is also a potential reversal entry, right? So in this particular case, breaking Bitcoin broke down. In this particular case, based on the fundamentals, based on my own personal analysis, I am going to be taking this discretionary position on Bitcoin, right? And I think the exit signal from the BB system is a great complement for me to feel much more confident about this particular trade setup with the invalidation that I've posted out. Also, I want to pay close attention to Minx, which of course did give. Let's look at Minx here. If we plot take profits, Minx did generate the take profit long signal at the highest daily close, which it is so good at doing sometimes, back on the 2nd of May. It is now crossed under, the Minx line is crossed under the noise line. And if you're not familiar with that terminology, allow me to use more, more traditional trading. The Minx line is crossed underneath the signal line and or trigger line. Minx comes with a trigger line, 2 of them actually, one being the moving average of its own self, and one being the centered oscillator nature of being a zero cross indicator. All right, both are applicable to trading. I know individuals that utilize Minx as a line cross indicator with good success. They need to be a little bit more, they need to use a less sensitive confirmer and baseline. And I know individuals that use the centered oscillator version of Minx, which is how it is default meant to be traded, with a more reactive, with a more sensitive confirmer baseline combination, which works very well also. And then again, just trading it on its own tends to work pretty good. Don Candon, I have that glow on my face because I just got your Christmas package, man. Thank you so much for the love. Let's see here. But the Minx indicator has crossed underneath the trigger line, has crossed underneath the noise line, right? Which is an indication of a potential reversal. It is a take profit long signal in and of itself, which can also always be viewed as a potential reversal sign. It has also been above the overbought threshold, and it is now crossing back down into the bullish control zone, or under the overbought threshold, right? But again, that sets us up nicely for a potential retest of support before getting the crossover above zero or the continuation long signal from Minx itself. In conjunction, if we take a look at Parallax, we can see that although Parallax is above zero and technically bullish, it is angling to the downside, right? And it's only going to take a little bit more sell pressure to actually get a negative bearish signal coming in from Parallax. So these are all kind of front running this potential reversal in Bitcoin's price. And again, overall where I'm looking, we can also see declining volume from Wadatar explosion. And again, declining volume from Wadatar explosion, although we haven't flipped delta negative. Although we haven't flipped delta negative, we can see the declining sell pressure. And again, the overall distribution, what appears to be a distribution pattern forming in Bitcoin right now. So again, a lot there. Again, all the take profit, stop losses, entries, all of those things have already been posted to the premium members. That is all up on the Discord channel, in the Discord channels, and in my analysis that I put out. Ethereum is not really looking any different. Let's take a look. I've also put out several altcoin trades today. Oh, yeah. And then, of course, getting back to the Bitcoin daily chart, of course, the daily isn't closed yet, but this does appear to be forming a hanging man candle, which is a classical reversal candle, followed by the doji candle from yesterday, which indicates equality of buying and selling pressure. And that's not really what you want to see at resistance, right? It's not really what you want to see. Declining volume delta, Parallax, Minx, and of course, the breaking Bitcoin exit system itself, right? And again, Parallax is good. is good for front running things. Now, we'll get to all that in just a second. Okay, here we go. Therefore, okay, so let's see here. Overall on my watch list right now is Ethereum Classic, Decred, and VeChain looking the strongest moving forward. Monero, Bitcoin Cash, XRP, Doge, and Dash already appear to be distributing or breaking down. Now, of course, most top 20 coins are up. Only XLM and Ethereum Classic outperformed Bitcoin last week, and the correction already seems to have set in on price for the majority of those pairs. All right, altcoin pressure is clearly switched to the sell side, particularly looking at Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, which we have an interesting setup on, which if you're a premium member, you're already aware of. But again, it's easy to see that the sell pressure has increased in those markets with Chainlink, I would argue, dominating. Right now, I would say that a daily close above our current high, or our daily high close, 9,200, would invalidate this setup for me, particularly if that daily were to close above 9,500 and would push me to reassess and reevaluate my situation. If you take any trade, what is that doing there? If you take any trade, make sure to position size appropriately. If you do not know what that means, do not push the green or red button on your trading terminal. You need to understand the most important thing that you can do if you want to be a trader is learn how to calculate the correct position size, because the game of trading is a game of statistical averages. How much on average do you lose? How much on average do you win? And how can you put those numbers in your favor? And the only way that you can do that consistently, time after time after time, is knowing the statistically correct, or best, let's say Kelly bet position size to put on, right? And again, we have all of these tools available for all of our premium members, and I strongly urge you guys to utilize these each and every day, each and every trade. It is the only way. It is the primary reason I am successful, all right? Okay. With that being said, we are going to is that an owl on my finger? It is. Yeah, it's my family crest. Justin Wise. It is my real last name. People think like, oh, is that like your stage name? Like, no, my last name is Wise. I come from a long line of Wises. Yeah. What I don't have, right? I don't have like that old English tattoo across my back, like with my family name. No, just the owl on my finger, right? Because I believe that we live in a new world. Again, I live a very clean life. I go to bed early. I wake up early. I don't consume substances. I'm an overall fairly, what most people would consider like boring human being, because I'm efficient and I trade and, I care about my life, right? I'm a father, I'm a trader, I'm a business owner, and, I'm not a degenerate, right? Let's just put it that way, right? Don't got any problems with degens. They're just generally not very reliable with money, i.e. don't really want them around my life. Having said that, and again, I know the stereotype around dudes with like tons of piercings and tattoos all over themselves. I think that's totally cool, right? I have worked with individuals that looked clean cut and absolutely like were not very intelligent. And I've worked with people that you would want to turn away. Most people would want to turn away because they're tattooed from head to toe. And although there's a stereotype there, again, I think I'd like to promote a world where it's cool for you guys to ornate or decorate your body any way that you want, anyhow that you want, any tattoos that you want, any kind of piercings that you want, right? You just gotta be aware. I think that most people, the idea of dressing fashionably, unfortunately, has gone out of popularity, and that's such a shame because, a gentleman looks very dapper and very handsome when he's wearing good clothes. He feels better about himself when he is wearing good clothes, when he takes the time to take care of his body, moisturize his skin, all the stuff that you're just supposed to do, right? I mean, you're stuck with your skin. It's your largest organ. Put some dang lotion on that thing, right? Lotion on your face, boys. You heard it here. Exercising, wearing a good looking button down or a good fitting t-shirt, a nice pair of pants, some nice shoes. Everybody, there's this kind of sentiment that's come. I think the minimalist movement has helped it. I think that kind of the kind of current environment of society has kind of pushed us towards this kind of unisex, right? Like everybody dresses the same type thing. And while there may or may not be something wrong with that, people look good in good looking clothes. And so I highly encourage you, right? If you think that, it doesn't matter what I look like, it does. It does matter what you look like. People will, your friend and your friend base will expand if your friends pick up that you are a confident individual who takes care of things and cares about themselves and their own appearance. caring about your own appearance and projecting that outwards is a direct reflection of how you feel about yourself. And unfortunately, because I also, as a mentor, because I've done a lot of mentoring comes down to talk therapy. Talk to a lot of people about this, guys and girls. And generally, I'm going to say 9 out of 10 times when people throw that, I'm like, hey man, why are you dressed like a slouch? And they're like, well, it doesn't matter what I look like. When we start drilling down, they have a lack of self-confidence, right? Like, so the whole, it doesn't matter what I look like is generally 99% of the time a shield thrown up by people who don't have good self-confidence. So rule of the day, go pick up a good looking suit, gentlemen. Go pick up something nice, ladies. You'll feel a lot better about yourself. It's good stuff. All right. With that being said, before we get into the news, current event stuff, right? How does this have to do with crypto? It has everything to do with crypto, man. It has everything to do with crypto. It's got everything to do with your life. By the way, current events. Well, not current events. Movie recommendation. I watched last night with my daughter, I Am Mother. It's on Netflix. You guys can go stream it. Pretty good. Pretty good. Sci-fi, thriller, a little dystopian future, right? Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. You guys can mute right now and I'll like wave my hand when the spoilers are done. But essentially, all right? Essentially, what I want to, what I want to analyze in that movie is that this kind of fundamental theme that I see all the time. And I'm kind of interested to hear what your guys' opinion on it is, because as this movie progresses, right, it starts off with, humanity is post-apocalyptic and there's only one human left alive and being raised in isolation by a robot, trained from birth to be the perfect human being. And then eventually over the course of that movie, she gets curious about the outside world. You can't go outside. There's contaminants. It's toxins. You're going to die. I mean, that movie coming out amidst coronavirus is very, 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 I think, poignant. But it all centers around that, right? And this is a common trope that I've seen in tons and tons and tons of sci-fi movies, particularly post-apocalyptic sci-fi movies, because I've seen movies like this, right? Where, humans are being raised in isolation in tanks and whatever, right? But it always drives down to this fundamental concept that human beings want to be free, right? Human beings want to be free, that no matter how perfect the system is that we are brought up in, if we were brought up around a perfect system, human beings have a tendency to tend toward entropy, essentially. The universe does. And we have the desire to understand, break, manipulate, create what's going on around us. So, what do you guys feel? I guess trying to wrap that up in a fairly useful way. I just think it's an interesting trope that a lot of these sci-fi movies that I've seen recently that kind of have the same common theme of post-apocalyptic society. A very common theme is we can't go outside. There's a contagion. They did that in, I Am Mother, and they just did that recently with American Horror Story, the latest season, not the newest season, but the last good season. Are human beings always going to want to go out into the radioactive wasteland just to make sure that it's radioactive wasteland out there? And maybe it is radioactive wasteland, but hey, let's go out there anyways, because we could make some things happen, So I think it's true. I think it's true that human beings, no matter what kind of system or isolation system you put them in, we're always going to want to break, achieve, push forward, create, understand, because that's what we do, right? That's what we do, When the aliens came down and dropped circuit boards on us, we were like, whoa, what do we do with this thing? Break it all apart. I don't really believe that happened. I think that human beings are totally capable of creating all the technology that we see around us by ourselves, contrary to popular opinion. Having said that, we got a lot of news to break down today. So make sure, if you guys have not already, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon. That way you'll be notified every time we go live, which is every day at 12 p.m. But we might sneak some slippery stuff on you. We might go live at we'll go live at 12 p.m. every day. Don't worry about that. But hey, might go live at 6 p.m. Might go live at 8 a.m. Right? Just for fun. And then come back live at 12 p.m. So the only way to make sure you catch those is if you hit the bell icon and smash the like button. Otherwise, YouTube does not tell other people that we exist. There's just no way to find us if you don't hit the thumbs up button. And you can share us around to your friends, your family, heck, people you don't even like. They're excited about the happening, whether or not you are. You can also follow us on, I wonder if this works over here. Do I have it? No, not on this scene. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for the latest updates. And of course, hop in the Discord. Links are in the description down below. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Can't. Okay, Bitcoin block half, 7 days, 11 hours, 39 minutes, and 58 seconds. We are there, boys. Block 630,000. Let's get the sell pressure coming in. Notable mentions. U.S. Congress is considering a blockchain-based voting. for senators to vote while they are in isolation. Currently our current legislative system requires that senators be there physically and present. There are in absentia ballots that can be submitted. However, they're talking about building a blockchain-based solution so that all of our congressional votes can be done on the blockchain, which I think is overall a pretty good push. Again, the whole concept, blockchain is being utilized. We've covered supply chains. We've covered how blockchain can be utilized in global business solutions. And of course, blockchain is the wave of the future. So regardless of how you feel about Bitcoin, or how you feel about the blockchain Bitcoin debate, like blockchain's bad, but Bitcoin is good because it's on a blockchain, but it's a sound monetary system. Listen, you have to understand that all of the blockchain innovation that's going on, like corporations aren't going to go away when Bitcoin takes over the monetary supply, right? Bitcoin was not created to solve social justice ideas of what companies should and should not do, right? Remember that. Like there's a lot of individuals who have confused what I would call social liberalism or kind of pushing toward democratic socialism, right? And again, correct me if I get some of these terms wrong. This is just what makes sense in my head. But this kind of anti-business sentiment, and maybe they're right. I'm sure there are some good points for the Occupy Wall Street protesters and kind of the whole sentiment that's followed and become popular in American sentiment ever since that, right? There are some significant issues. With the way, and my argumentation is that it is an influence of the state because the state highly regulates not only the financial sector and the business sectors and the economy. Because of that regulation from the state, because of that command and control, non-incentivization to build good products and services, because the free market has that incentive to build good products and services. So I think that this idea of crony capitalism doesn't actually exist. There's, the idea of capitalism is just capitalism. Crony capitalism, as it's conceptualized, exists because of the influence of the state on the economy, because the state has the ability to create these, well, we got this special deal with you, and we got this special deal with you, and normal people can't get access to this deal, but you're our homie over there, Bill Gates. Come on in, man. So crony capitalism exists because of regulation by the state of the economy. Increasing regulation by the state will result in more crony capitalism that people like to whine and complain about. Decentralizing the monetary supply and getting government out of the marketplace, out of most things that affect us financially, does increase human liberty. And yes, does set up the stage where, guess what? Bad things can happen because sometimes Walmart gets some stuff wrong, right? And sometimes a manufacturer in China is not vetted good enough. And sometimes something bad gets into the food. Sometimes something bad gets into the powdered milk. Sometimes some of those bikes that you buy at the store are broken. Sometimes, the car part that you order doesn't work quite right. But guess what? Overall, when you go to the store, in America, you have a very, and most places around the world, you have a very high level of confidence that you're going to buy the product that you need, that it's going to work, and you're going to be able to just buy it, go home, and go on with your own life. And you're improved, your life is improved, and the business is improved, and all the employees and everything else, and the economy and the world. You do not need an authoritarian state regulating the economy, regulating society. And I feel, unfortunately, I think that we have created this trend of individuals pushing for more regulation to get away from the behavior that they are upset about, right? But more regulation by the state will not improve things. It will make things worse. However, having said that, going back to the original point, Bitcoin was not created to resolve those issues. Bitcoin was created to resolve the issue of what I just brought up, which is having a cartel of central banks dominate the monetary supply, right? With discretion, which is not what we want. We want a fair, honest, decentralized, technical monetary system that we can build sound economies on that rewards savers and forward thinkers and not debt-based societies and debt-based abusers, which nations and central banks are the worst offenders of, being debt abusers. So remember that. Bitcoin was designed to fix Bitcoin is being applied, I think, to resolve the central banking cartel, which allows manipulative statism in the first place, manipulative state control of the economy, and control of the free market by a command and control top-down form of government, right? Which is not good, not necessary, and not what we have built, sacrificed, and fought for thousands of years now, as the march of progress, human progress, is just keep going forward and forward and forward, to take a back step now because we want the government to come in and protect us because we don't like what Walmart does sometimes. So this is pretty cool. Obviously, they brought up like one main point here, which is that they're concerned about like 51% attacks. Like, yeah, like build a good blockchain, right? Yeah. Pretty simple. Maybe use Algorand. Maybe Algorand would be a good choice for voting for the government. I guess. Oh man, they're gonna get me now. They're listening. GPS on my phone. All right, 11, and this comes following 11 members of Congress from the blockchain coalition generally, but some others, urged Mnuchin, Treasury Secretary of the United States, to use blockchain for COVID-19 stimulus payments. And this is following what we covered not too long ago with, I'm going to forget his name. What's his name? David appointed to comptroller of the currency, Coinbase, legal. Brian Brooks, sorry, forgot his name there for a second. But Brian Brooks, this follows Brian Brooks being appointed to officer of the comptroller of the currency here in the United States. And he is a strong advocate for a digital dollar, right? So we want to be aware of this. We want to be concerned about this because we've talked about the dangers of central bank digital currency and the fact that they will not be censorship resistant and the fact that they will essentially allow the central bank utilizing a non-sound monetary system, which is fiat currency, to really have all of the data, all of your financial decisions right now. And again, this is going back to the overall argument of statism versus non-statism. You know, right now, as much as it sucks, as much as banking is corrupt, you still have this buffer of commercial banks in between you and the central bank, i.e. government, central bank / government, really one entity. They tell you it's two, it's not. Okay. You have this buffer of commercial banks, which are like mostly free market, quasi crony capitalism, right? Because they got the sweet deals with the central bank and everything, right? And, you know, a digital dollar quickly diminishes the incentive or really the purpose, in my opinion, of having these commercial banks stand in between you and the central bank, because everything's on this one centralized ledger and database. They don't need the commercial banks to, you know, provide interest. They might keep them up as like shell companies to keep the appearance that the financial sector is, decentralized to a degree, or not located in one source, one bank, which, you know, our government gives name, you know, kind of speaking to the lip service. That's the word I'm looking for. Lip service, the idea that they don't want that. But in reality, that's absolutely what they want. They want one place, one database, one record. We don't like you. Boom. You cannot donate to Trump anymore. We don't like you. Boom. You can't donate to Joe Biden anymore. So we want to get away from this. And although the current system certainly sucks, having commercial banks as a buffer in between the interests of the state and having to contend with the interests of Citi and Chase is still better than having to contend with an all-powerful authoritarian government, which, by the way, has control of the military and, with a digital dollar, the finances. So be warned. CBDCs, big danger. So is this going to happen? No. Is it neat that they're talking about it and that we're getting more senators in there? Yes. And the other thing too is, like, keep in mind, guys, the more, I know that some people aren't going to like hearing this, right? But the reality exists. We do live in a representative democracy. I'm trying to pick my words carefully here. A representative democracy. Where we nominate legislators to speak on our behalf as citizens and make policy, okay? And we are a republic. People, even in, I see people all the time falling into this false narrative, this false idea, and of course I'm an American, so I'm speaking with an American bias here, that we can't change anything, right? That the government's just going to do what it's going to do, and Bill Gates is going to put all these vaccines in us, bro, and we're doomed, and the aliens are going to come down, and the black hole's going to open up, and Mars is going to crash into the Earth, and we're all dead. No, man, no. We're alive. We're here. We're going to fight. We're going to beat these people down. We're going to build the society that we want. We're going to elect the right people into government. We're going to figure out the better form of governance. We're going to spread Bitcoin or the best monetary system. We're going to figure out the problems with economics. We're going to have a more just justice system and legal system and social system. And we're going to figure out right? International politics. We're going to figure out international tensions. We're going to figure out the best way to structure society. We're going to get off the earth. We're going to populate across the stars. We are going to do these things, right? So let's be long-term bullish on humanity, okay? Be long-term bullish on humanity. But again, as I always say, with a limit order, right? Because, you don't want to just market into humanity. So again, the more that you can get involved, as much as you might think it's, oh, so bourgeoisie, get involved with your local politics. Call your senators, call your representatives and tell them, yo, I want blockchain for my stimulus check. You can make a change, right? And again, as I always say, you're not going to change anything if your personal life is a wreck. Okay, so get yourself in shape, as Jordan B. Peterson would say. Get yourself together, wake up, make your bed. Then build a good relationship with your family. Because if your relationship with your family is not good, you are not building a life on a strong foundation. You have to have a good relationship with your friends and family. You have to. It's absolutely essential, right? We are social creatures, and the whole, I'm the swaggering rock star who walks around with a bottle of whiskey and a cigarette hanging out of my mouth, and nobody likes me, nobody understands me. Well, they call that teen angst, right? And teens, we don't let teens do anything or make any decisions for themselves because they're stupid, okay? So don't be stupid. Good, successful men and women are built on the strength of their social systems and the strength of their conviction and beliefs. Okay. If you have a poor social system, if you have a poor network of friends and family, fix that. First, fix yourself. Because most likely, if you do have a poor network of friends and family, it's most likely because your personal life is not in order, right? So get yourself together. Go to bed early. Wake up early. Drink more water. Exercise. Educate yourself. Find a good job. Don't do drugs. Simple things, okay? Simple things, right? And yeah, once you progress, right? Get yourself in order. Get your family in order. Okay, cool. Now actually start getting involved in some of these things because now your opinion actually matters. Like, it's kind of like, this is always the thing, right? Like you got this, people go off into the wilderness to find some guru to explain life to them, right? And it's like, yeah, okay, maybe that dude's kind of wise, but are you really going to put him in charge of like executing these grand ideas? No, you're going to select the dude who's like in the thick, totally on top of it, picks up the phone when you call. His family likes him because he's a good guy, or her family likes her because she's a good gal. They're trustworthy and they're real people. So yeah, we got to get out there, get connected and make some changes, right? This world can be absolutely what we want it to be, but you have to stand up and want it. You have to stand up and participate. Okay, moving on. And then listen, like, don't hate on me, but in some positive XRP news, and I went over this in more detail in the analysis that I posted. This is from Cointelegraph, and MoneyGram CEO, what's this dude's name? Come on now. Sherlock Holmes. Alexander Holmes, right? CEO of MoneyGram, chairman and chief executive. He gave this call where he talked about a quiet quarter regarding their partnership. And, look at this. MoneyGram reports quiet quarter for Ripple partnership, and major cross-border payments company MoneyGram has reported a quiet quarter with regards to its partnership with Ripple. And if you kind of read these first opening lines here, it's actually kind of like negative, like, oh, MoneyGram has decided they're not actually going to utilize Ripple so much in cross-border payments. But that's misleading and wrong. So I'm really calling out Cointelegraph here for misleading reporting, because if you actually go down and read what Alexander Holmes of MoneyGram says, quote here, we continue to flex with them as they continue to expand their service and move some things around and really figure out what they want the product to look and feel like and how they want to take that to various markets. So I think that'll change over time. I think the results of what we're doing will vary by quarter and by month. But yes, and look, the block, that was fairly amorphous. That doesn't mean anything, but they've got that block quote big and blown up. And then down here, but yes, it's been a good partnership and definitely pleased with what we've been doing. And right here, looking forward, Holmes expects that the partnership will generate revenues from experiments into new services and new corridors. What would you expect to use experimental blockchain technology for, right? It wasn't, wasn't that, Ripple or MoneyGram said, well, we're adopting Ripple now. We're going to use it for all payments. No, like MoneyGram already has an infrastructure built up that they make tons and tons and tons of money on, right? So, and then they switch over, right? They use these. If you go read, like I said, the first paragraph of this article, it's like negative, like, MoneyGram's not actually going to utilize Ripple and cross-border payments whatsoever. Well, that's not true. They are, they don't say that they're not. Then they switch over to quoting Intermex, which is another partner of Ripple. And then again, this is what they use as justification for saying that, well, MoneyGram's big partnership with Ripple is stalling out. No, it's really not. This is Robert Lisv, who's the CEO of Intermex, which is a remittance provider and a partner of Ripple, says that the firm's partnership will not see Ripple's technology utilized in its core markets. Again, they never proposed that they were going to do that in the first place. Again, Intermex already has an infrastructure of remittance built up. They're not going to just tear that down and throw Ripple in there. It says, so you won't really see us leveraging Ripple in our core markets. I think it will bring us more growth in newer markets in places where we're exploring going into ancillary products. Okay. Right. So I think I'm calling Cointelegraph out on this FUD on XRP. And again, Bitcoin purists out there, don't be mad at me. I'm just calling it like I see it. Because this is fake news. So anyways, moving right along. All right, into the news today, guys. Now, the highly anticipated halving event is just a week away. And of course, as we discussed earlier, opinions are pretty split on what sort of price action fireworks to expect in the post-halving time period. What sort of time frame to expect them on, right? The daily, the weekly, is it going to crash immediately, right? Going to crash, not immediately. Now, on Friday, we talked about the latest Grayscale report and how they coined the term quantitative hardening to describe the fundamental event that the block reward halving represents to Bitcoin's underlying scarcity and inflationary narrative, right? And of course, this is occurring during a time when central banks around the world are firmly gripped in quantitative easing programs, right? Injecting money into the monetary system, right? Inflating the monetary system, i.e. inflation. In a way, Bitcoin expresses its own monetary policy through the halving event, right? Again, remember, Bitcoin is a deflationary currency, and it expresses its monetary policy through the halving. And it couldn't have arrived at arguably a better time, right? Because this is the backdrop of an imploding financial system, right? And this backdrop of an imploding financial system is pretty effective at drawing in new investors and people interested in an alternative to the financial status quo. Again, what is the big thing that people are just wondering right now? Like, regular people are like, what do I do with my money, right? I talk to so many people every single day that just want to know, like, look, I've got money in stocks, I've got my 401k, what do I do with it? I'm afraid, right? And just like how the events of 2008 inspired the creation and launch of the Bitcoin protocol in the first place by 2010, a decade later, we are faced with a crisis which highlights the ineffectiveness of our leaders at managing economic policy, inadvertently making a case for alternatives like Bitcoin for anyone who is paying attention and looking for an exit out of a quickly crumbling financial system. Now, again, just to cover the basics here, of course, every 4 years, Bitcoin comes calling with a reminder that its monetary policy is set in stone amid, like the other two halvings that came before it, many are attracted to the subsequent weeks, months, and years to Bitcoin to follow the halving event, right? Where the hash rate, difficulty, and most of all, the price per coin climbs many times over as the leading cryptocurrency Bitcoin generally defies naysayers time and time and time again. All right. Now, this is a sort of supply shock, right? Supply shock anticipation as a result of the halving, right? As this occurs, word begins to spread and the hype begins to build every 4 years in the crypto space, leading to usually bullish run-ups prior to the event. And looking back at the past week of Bitcoin's price action, that certainly has been the case, right? We've seen a very impressive run-up. This is the 7th week of consistent gains, as I said earlier. But following the halving, price remains pretty volatile and even generally sees big retracements to test earlier support. Thus, again, another fundamental feather in the cap of my short trade. Before we get that bull market rally, you guys know what I'm talking about. Like there's rallies and then there's rallies. You know what I'm saying? Sorry. All right. Sometimes you just got to be real with it. Okay. That takes us to new all-time highs. All right. Now, this at least has been how it has played out over the course of the previous two halvings. right? Now, the third halving might affect price by drawing, again, the only thing that we have to go off now is by drawing references to prior halvings, right? Now, if we're looking at prior halvings, let's think about it. Bitcoin, if we look at prior halvings, right? Generally pre and post halvings, we see Bitcoin getting sold into pretty hard. That's generally been the rule, not the exception, right? If you look at November 28th, 2012 and July 9th, 2016, right? That offers a pretty good picture of what to expect next week, right? Immediately following the halving, we see a shakeup in hash rate, followed by appropriate difficulty adjustments to the network as the miners currently mining around break even are affected the most, right? Which we covered before, this catalyzing capitulation of miners, and may be forced to exit. Right? What follows is another cycle of miner capitulation as those participants left operating in a post-halving environment make do with a smaller reward pool before price begins to appreciate again. And miners are reintroduced and difficulty adjustments continue and readjust the difficulty of the network so that miners that were originally kicked out or catalyzed can come back into the system. And of course, this sets up, as I talked about, that kind of environment where larger mining operations that are profitable might actually decrease the sell flow for Bitcoin even more post-halving, a week or two, after difficulty adjusts, because they speculate, right? And they speculate the price will go up. This is what's happened significantly every previous halving, the past two halvings. And if they don't really need to sell a whole lot of excess Bitcoin because they're already mining profitably, they are incentivized to just hold on to their Bitcoins for higher prices to yield higher profits, right? Now, according to, let's see here. According to Token Daily, they say that Bitcoin's price they say that Bitcoin's price is not going to move up significantly until mid-2021, all right? Now, these two tables show the price change of Bitcoin in the months following the halving. They note that price makes significant changes about 6 months after the halving, and the maximum change is 12 months post-halving. Hence, hodling until May 2021 would provide the highest ROI. This is very similar to what I said. What was it like last week, I think it was, or last week or 2 weeks ago, where I said that accumulating long-term positions designed to be held for over a year have a high likelihood, have a high statistical probability of being profitable. You guys can check this out. This is on AMB Crypto. I'll post the link in the chat right here if you guys want to take a look at these charts. Zuhair Nakvi, thank you so much for the question and the $5 tip, my friend. He says, how valid would playing this price action as a 12-hour baseline reversal bounce be? Let's see here. Let's head back to the charts. Okay. All right. Let's see where that 12-hour baseline is sitting. Okay. So you want to be taking the 12-hour reversal baseline bounce to the upside. I think that that's fine. I would curtail the profit expectations a bit because I am aiming to get filled on a short right around this upper range, the upper boundary of the range. So I'm looking for us to sweep. So again, that does put a long on the table, put the 12-hour long on the table, and validation with a 12-hour close below this low or below the baseline. It's a valid setup. I would use probably less risk on this trade, certainly. But of course, since I am looking for upwards price momentum so that I can get filled and swept on my short, and because I already am long and I have a trailing stop loss now on my long, I think that makes sense. I might utilize... again, if we go down and look at the lower time frames, one can argue, and I am going to argue, that the really good entry is probably past us, which is right down here at this retest of support that we had over here. So kind of this lower range. So what I would probably look for instead is either that, which is valid, or wait for dips down between 87 and 8,600 and try to get some limit fills bought up here. And then again, target the upper boundary of the range, 89 to 91, which is where I'm going to be getting filled on my short. But it's going to be hard for me to recommend a long when I'm trying to go short. I am already long. I would trail your stop on your long. And then you've got a better risk to reward ratio, because then if price closes below your 12-hour baseline, you've already gotten a lower price entry anyways. All right. Now, back on the topic of getting that, we're gonna go over Deutsche Bank here in just a second. Back on the topic of holding that Bitcoin long for a year, right? Hodling until May 2021, which is certainly, I think, a good idea. You know, I think this incentivizes many to choose to remain hodlers for years to come, rather than cashing out at the first good opportunity. Now, again, if you have participated in Bitcoin's price at any kind of stage over the last 5 years, then you've had lots of opportunities to cash out at good prices, right? But again, overall, what has the trend shown us with Bitcoin's price, right? That those who hold are rewarded, right? So again, long-term thinking, get yourself a ledger, link in the description down below, and think of the long-term opportunity. Doesn't mean you have to put, again, I trade, I go long, I go short. My trading account and my investment account are two different things. But if you don't have a fundamental piece of Bitcoin for the long run, I don't even know what you're doing here, bro. I don't even know what you're doing here. And that's good, because that means that those who choose to start hodling now will be among our ranks come the 2024 halving. And where price will take us then is anyone's guess, right? So I look forward to a whole new wave of people watching, or yet to watch, or people who don't even watch the show, of entering the ranks of being Bitcoin hodlers. Hodlers unite. Okay, so it's been a long time coming, and it is finally here. Negative rates are finally arriving for depositors at European banks, and it's not surprising that Deutsche Bank is at the center of the next story. Now, the ECB, the European Central Bank, first unleashed negative rates across Europe in 2014, and the banks were hesitant to match the ECB's deposit rates for their clients, as fears were rampant that depositors would simply take their money and go somewhere else. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? After all, the premise of paying a bank for the privilege of holding your money is still pretty insane for most normal people, because it doesn't make any sense. However, as the years went by, and as the ECB's negative rates kept rising, or rates kept going further negative, depending on your look at it, banks have been forced to quietly admit that they have no choice and begin charging a small cross-section of their clients for keeping their money on the books. Well, it started at the very top with only their corporate clients and the biggest depositors having negative deposit rates applied to them, while they avoided subjecting the smaller savers to negative rates at all costs. That was their incentive, right? That was their incentive, right? And so in November, Deutsche Bank vowed that it would only ever pass. Deutsche Bank vowed that it would only ever pass on these negative rates to their larger corporate customers, right? And they would not be charging retail clients for the ECB's basically policy decisions, right? Now, as quoted in the Zero Hedge article, Deutsche Bank Deputy CEO Karl von Rohr talked about how German banks set up several billion euros in penalty rates for their deposits to the European Central Bank, and that these payments amount to several hundred million euros for 2019. Right? This is what the ECB was charged. This is what the Deutsche Bank was charged for the ECB to hold its money on deposit. Now, less than half a year later, Deutsche Bank, which has pretty much been considered a dead bank walking for years now by everybody, has capitulated, and to avoid paying the ECB's punishing rate this year, has introduced plans to collect on those negative interest rates, even on its medium-sized depositors. And if you do not think that small-sized depositors are next, you are crazy, according to their own spokesperson, ongoing pressure from negative interest rates makes it necessary for Deutsche Bank to charge custody fees for accounts exceeding 100,000 euros. So for our, I guess that's not too big. That's most businesses over there. That's the deposit rate of negative 0.5% being charged, as equal to the rate the ECB charges banks for money that commercial banks want to park at the European Central Bank, right? Now, further on down this article, they quote Manfred Knopf, who is the Deutsche Bank Private Customers Operations. He described how this seriously helps the bank on the earnings side, of course, but most of all, what it really helps with is with preventing further inflows of large deposits that only end up costing them money. Quit giving us money. It's a bank that doesn't want money, because if you give them money, it's going to cost them money just to hold on to it. And this is particularly critical when other German commercial banks have begun adjusting their policies in tandem, and customers are shopping around for alternatives on where to put their money, right? Deutsche Bank wants to avoid being on the receiving end of customers fleeing negative rate conditions, cropping up at other banks, right? And coming to Deutsche Bank. Oh, hey, we heard that you gave positive interest rates. Now, looking at it another way, the ECB is flooding the European financial system with a tsunami of liquidity, which only keeps expanding as another long-term refinance operation was just announced on Friday that aims to help those banks that no longer are earning a net interest from deposits or facing risk insolvency. And at this point, Europe's banks feel like they no longer really need deposits, and in fact will do everything they can to push away all but the smallest depositors. Wonder where those people are going to put their money. Bitcoin. The good news is, if you can call it that, Deutsche Bank's new policy is set to apply to new deposits. Existing medium depositors will not be affected, but the goal is to certainly, clearly here, ward off huge waves of depositors and deposits leaving other European banks from arriving on the books of the already crippled Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank does not want new deposits because they have to pay interest on those deposits to park that money with the European Central Bank. So, with European banks finally cracking down on the bulk of their depositors, instead of just the top 1% and corporate clients, like they said they were going to, we have to ask, well, what happens next? Well, savers who collectively own trillions in European bank deposits that are now clients, I guess clients non grata, have two options. Either pull the money out, convert it to cash, and store it in a safe. This is something Germans already have a lot of experience with. When back in 2016, Deutsche Bank was again, back then, teetering on the edge of insolvency, right? And this sparked a pretty big wave of home safe purchases by the German public, attempting to park their money outside of a potentially collapsing financial giant, right? Or the entire financial system, really, at that point in time. But the ECB now, for its part, seemed to prepare for this eventuality. Several years ago, they ceased printing the 500 euro banknote in order to discourage hoarding of cash, and maybe inadvertently drove the public to instead hold alternative physical assets like precious metals or even cryptocurrency, seeing that they aren't in the process of being debased or subject to negative rates like cash deposits have been in recent years. So, in other words, if the next few months leads to a wave of mysterious buying as depositors begin exiting fiat systems in Europe, you'll know why many non-traditional assets that come with the added bonus of being free from an imposed penalty rate, thanks to a negative interest rate environment and system, well, we'll know why. So you see those big buys coming in on Bitcoin, you tell us, be sure to leave a comment down below and tell us if you're affected by negative interest rates and how you feel about them, and how you feel this bolsters the case for alternative assets being bought and held by investors, particularly in the Eurozone, particularly in Germany. And final story today. Ethereum mined its 10 millionth block today, making a significant milestone for the world's second largest cryptocurrency. Data from Blockchain Explorer Etherscan shows the 10 millionth block was successfully mined at exactly 01-22-13 p.m. Universal Coordinated Time. In contrast, just 628,900 Bitcoin blocks, since I wrote this morning, have been mined since it launched on January 3rd, 2009. However, Bitcoin blocks do take much longer to be produced, around 10 minutes on average. So, launched, just a brief story here, launched in 2015. Ethereum was at the beginning envisioned as a decentralized world computer. It has risen to prominence in the market cap top 100, obviously top 2, before exploding in value during the crypto market boom of 2017. It is currently the second highest ranked coin by market capitalization. Ethereum's white paper originally envisioned blocks to be processed every 12.6 seconds. In practice, the time between blocks has proven to be slightly higher. Right? Data from BitInfo charts show Ethereum blocks times have arrived on average every 20 seconds or so, with occasional spikes as high as 50 seconds during periods of congestion, during periods of blockchain or network congestion. Yet, such milestones are soon going to be a thing of the past as Ethereum shifts toward a proof of stake consensus model in the coming years, most likely, but according to them, this year, right, as they move to the proof of stake Ethereum 2.0. Let us know how you guys think about that down below. All right, so that's going to conclude the news for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me for the news segment, for the cryptocurrency segment. Again, if you haven't already, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It's the only way that we can get the word out there and get new people into the community. And make sure to drop a comment below today's video letting us know how you guys think. All right. Back over here to the chart. We're going to break down this a little bit as we take a few live questions. All right. Before we do that, as you guys know, what was I going to say? Yeah. Before we do that, as you guys know, we do a majority. I don't want to say a majority, but we do, of course, trade on ByBit. Traded on BitMEX for a long time. I do not like that exchange. I do not like that platform. I mean, it's very convenient for a lot of people. But if getting liquidation notices is convenient for you. I like trading on ByBit, guys. Let's see how Jason is doing with his trading on ByBit. Can't catch a break over on BitMEX with all the wicks? Try a better alternative at ByBit.crackingcryptocurrency.com and rest easy for a change. That face gets me every time. Oh, that face gets me every time. Bob, good to see you in the chat, my brother. Okay. Let me pull open. Somewhere around here. Oh, let me pull open today's notes. Oh yeah, of course, the chest. Do the chest. Shout out to my people over there on DLive. Oh, DLive's not working. Tron BitTorrent 2020. Thanks for the follow. I guess DLive ain't working. What's a darn shame. We'll see if it'll not. It's not gonna let me. All right. Well, sorry guys, I can't do the chest today. Okay, let's do Wayne Arndt. Let's take a look at Ethereum Classic, okay? Ethereum Classic's been performing very well. Let's look at, well, first off, let's just get our bearings. Let's look at the USDT pair. All right, so here we are on the daily, looking at the USDT pair. And again, putting in that same kind of pattern that Bitcoin is putting in right now, okay? Long wick to the downside, touching down on the daily continuation filter, right? Obviously, a close below there would be putting us in a, pursuant to the BB system, pursuant to the PTP, in a no, well, not pursuant to PTP, but pursuant to the breaking Bitcoin system, in a no trade zone, right? Does set up the opportunity for a reversal from the break below the continuation filter to support, right? As a reversal trade to the baseline. This is a reversion of the mean strategy, utilizing same over same components. But let's see here. Dive down into support. The only thing that's a little concerning here is, you know, again, Ethereum Classic's been looking very, very strong. So I am going to be biased to continue to take, to be bullish on Ethereum Classic as long as we are still trading in this range. Again, things to consider though, right? Is that what is this? Triple bearish divergence from Minx. Yeah. Triple bearish divergence from Minx. Minx was trading above the overbought level, has now, I would say, pretty, you could see it crossing below a few times, but pretty resolutely crossed back down into what is still the bullish control zone above zero, but crossing back down below. Let's see here. We have declining volume delta over the last few days, but not negative. And Parallax is working its way down toward the zero line, right? So we're still bullish right now, meaning that we're biased to look for continuation here. What I would watch for is a break below $6.69. If that were to happen, I would expect to see price come down and retest my initiator, i.e., which is almost always in sync with the baseline. We can see that right here. Yeah. It's almost always in sync with the baseline. So kind of this nice pocket between the baseline and my initiator. So in between $5.90 and $6 would most likely be the next area that I'd be interested in buying at if Ethereum were to break down from its current area. Right? And yeah, I mean, I think one common way that I'm looking at this is very similar to the way that I'm looking at Bitcoin right now, which is a failure to achieve. Come on, where's my paint tool? All right. So again, we have a high, we make a low, we fail to make a higher high, we make a lower high, right, which has occurred right now. And you can take the trade when we break the low, right? And you set your stop loss above the previous high, right? You have to target kind of the lower area of that range for the R to be good on that. That'd be about 2-to-1 R if you got the entry fairly well. Again, kind of watching the 4-hour chart for that. But again, if you're bearish on this particular movement, I mean, this is a pretty good setup. The R here for shorting this as a top is better than attempting to get a long, especially with price being high, right? Price is high. It's been on a pretty vertical trend to the upside. We've got this kind of fake trend line that a lot of traders are going to be watching, right? And then when price breaks below it, a lot of traders are going to try to short. That's not the way to do it. You know, you short the retest of the trend line, the BPC, and then you take price down to your target level. Yeah. So I think the R is to play the dollar pairing to the short side, because I think that Bitcoin against the dollar is going to go to the short side. Having said that, if Ethereum Classic ends up consolidating here and trading above this local high at about 7, let's say if it trades above 750, then you'd have a riskier continuation long generating. Yeah, and I would actually be more inclined to trade the Bitcoin pairing right now because Bitcoin is consolidating and getting prepared for a movement to the downside. Generally, we see the more liquidity coming out of the Bitcoin pairings, which actually, looking at the Bitcoin pairing here, looks pretty good, right? Ooh, price is range bound. This nice ETC BTC pair is range bound. You've got a pretty clear delineated level of support. You've made a higher high. You're attempting to hold on and actually retest previous resistance as support. Yeah, see, this looks much better to me. This looks like it has much more room to grow to me. The Bitcoin pairing. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of your classic breakout trade right here. And price has already gotten swept. This was your opportunity to get long. I just did this morning with Ion, right? Like Ion swept really low. We were able to nag a really good entry on Ion. So yeah, that's your setup. Yeah, probably somewhere right there. So loose idea, but I like the Bitcoin pairing much more than particularly with Bitcoin likely to consolidate over the next couple of days and prepare for a move to the downside. I feel much more comfortable with that setup. Okay. All right, got that one. All right, with that being said, guys, I think that about wraps her up, man. That about wraps her up. And here we are back in the live scene. Thank you guys so much for joining me for another episode of Breaking Bitcoin Market Analysis. Again, as I said, my name is Justin Wise, lead analyst at CrackingCryptocurrency.com. Hopefully you guys go on to have an absolutely fantastic day. Too many bullet points because we covered so much. We covered so much in today's show. So make sure if you enjoyed the content, smash that like button. Like goal for today's video is 50. I know you guys can get us there. Absolutely. I have faith in you. I am bullish on that like bar. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. That's the only way to get notified when we go live, which could be at any point, right? You don't know what we're going to do. We're unpredictable. We're traders. No, we're here every single day at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 1 p.m. on the Eastern Seaboard, 10 a.m. in the morning. For those chilling on the Pacific Coast, cruising in the cool beast. In the cool waves of the Pacific. I'll go wash yourself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka. In tomorrow's episode, we're going to break down some more fundamentals and track Bitcoin's price and look at overall where our trade setup is progressing. Best of luck to all of you guys. Make sure to position size appropriately, trade safely. If you guys are just getting started or you want to improve on your trading strategy, make sure to hop in the Discord, discord.crackingcryptocurrency.com, or see all the services and products we provide at premium.crackingcryptocurrency.com. Again, trade safely. Have an awesome day. The day's just starting. You guys have so much time to get out there, improve yourselves, and get on top of stuff. I will see you guys tomorrow at 12 p.m. And until then, trade safely and be awesome.